So this morning, I want to talk about a subject. You have been Hellenized. Everyone has been Hellenized. Well, nearly everyone. And myself, no exception. But Hellenization is a problem. So I want to talk to you about where it came from, what it is, and how, and that it will be defeated. Let's go ahead and start with screen share. All right. Hellenism it began the period between the death of Alexander the Great and the annexation of the classical Greek heartlands by Rome. All right. And then you have Hellenistic Judaism, was a form of Judaism in classical antiquity that combined Jewish religious traditions with elements of Greek culture until the fall of Western Roman Empire and the early Muslim conquests of the Eastern Mediterranean. Main centers of Hellenistic Judaism were main centers of Hellenistic Judaism were Alexandria, Egypt, and Antioch, now in southern Turkey, two main Greek urban settlements of the Middle East and North Africa area, both founded at the end of the 4th century BCE. Okay. All right. So Hellenism was the enemy of Israel. Let me show you. Antiochus IV, a man who called himself God Manifest, or Epiphanes, which of course is blasphemy. 215 BC, November, December 164 BC, was a Hellenistic Greek king of the Seleucid Empire from 175 BC until his death in 164 BC, and he was son of King Antiochus III the Great. His original name was Mithridates, alternative form Mithridates. And of course, those of you who follow ancient mythology, Greek mythology, Mithraism came from Persia, and it is where modern day Christianity comes from. Modern day Christianity is not rooted in Yehoshua Messiah at all. It was the practice of the Greeks to take certain traditions of the other countries and to force them to conform to the Hellen way, the Hellenistic way. Okay? He assumed the name Antiochus after he ascended the throne. Notable events during the reign of Antiochus IV was his near conquest of Egypt, his persecution of the Jews of Judea and Samaria, and the rebellion of the Jewish Maccabees. Yes, the arch enemy of the Jews of Israel, the Elohim of Israel, and ultimately the arch enemy of Israel's true Messiah. Antiochus was the first Seleucid king to use divine epithets on coins, perhaps inspired by the Bactrian Hellenistic kings who had earlier done so, or else building in the ruler cult that his father Antiochus the Great had codified within the Seleucid Empire. Okay? These epithets were, and I quote, manifest God, bringer of victory. However, Also try to interact with common people by appearing in the public bathhouses and applying for municipal offices. And his often eccentric behavior and capricious actions led some of his contemporaries to call him Epimanes, the Mad One, and I too call him Antiochus the Madman, a word play on his title Epiphanes, and rightly so. Okay. Now, so what happened with the Greek Empire? The Romans annexed, they conquered most of it, and the last one, the throne of Satan, Pergamus. Yes, that's right. It's Pergamus was in those days before Rome became the higher power. Pergamus was Satan's seat. In fact, we can look it up real quick and show you where Satan dwells. Oh, I'm on. Revelation 2, verse 13. Where does Satan dwell back in those days? And to the angel of the church in Pergamus write these things, says he has a sharp sword with two edges. I know your works. And where you dwell, even where Satan's seat is. You see. And of course, Antipas was slain, was cooked alive in the bull, inside the bull, at Zeus's altar. You know, Zeus, the one that Jesus is named after. Okay. So we go to Attalus 3. Attalus 3 was the last Attalid king of Pergamon, or Pergamus. Was the son of King Eumenes II, and his queen Stratonice of Pergamon was the nephew of Attalus II, whom he succeeded, Philometor Ergates, meaning loving his mother, benefactor in Greece. He was so called because his close relationship to his mother. Okay. According to Livy, Attalus III had little interest in ruling Pergamon, devoted his time to studying medicine, botany, and gardening and other pursuits. He had no male children or heirs of his own, and in his will he left the kingdom to the Roman Empire, believing that he did not, then Rome, that if he did not, Rome would then take the kingdom anyway, and he wanted to avoid bloodshed. Okay. So the last kingdom of Greece was given to Rome in his will. Pergamus, Satan's seat when Greece ruled. And of course, we know where the power and authority of this world was transferred to Rome. Okay. So let's have a look at this. Greek influence on Western civilization. Some can say that we owe a great debt of gratitude to Greece and its influence on present-day democracy and the judicial system. Ancient Greece is where both the base of democracy and the modern justice system originated from. The word democracy originates from the Greek word demos, meaning people. See, you have been Hellenized, folks, and don't even know it. And you should have learned in public school that Western civilization received most of its philosophy from Hellenized Greece. And kratia, meaning power or rule. So Democracy is actually a Greek compound word meaning people power. Democracy literally means rule by the people. PSU lesson 12. They also implemented the process of allowing the people to vote on important matters, which is the basis for our voting system today. Now, I'm going to continue with this, but I want everyone to understand this is contrary to the kingdom that's going to be set up in Jerusalem. And it has long been the history of Western nations to force the others, the smaller nations, to abide by the will of the Hellenized nations. I mean, folks, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you already know this. Think about this concept for a second as it pertains to present day and Brexit. Regardless of what side someone is on in regards to Brexit, it is the implementation of Greek influence of democratic that allows that person the option to decide whether or not Britain should remain a part of the European Union. In addition, the Athenians were the first to start deciding whether laws were legal and also began the process of separating crimes between property and criminal. Prior to this, the oral laws were used under the control and influence of aristocratic class. Ancient Origins 2014. This means that crimes committed by the wealthy often went without those offenders being punished the way that a commoner would. Well, guess what? Most of you know by now that under the Hellenistic rules, nothing much has really changed, has it? Unless, of course, you as a rich and powerful person like the owner of the New England Patriots fall into disfavor with the wrong people. A man by the name of Draco. Now, Draco means dragon. So this is the law of the dragon that comes up here. Draco was tasked with creating and establishing a written code of law for Athens. Now, I might want to just go ahead and Draco definition. Let's see what comes up here. What does Draco mean? Draco is the Latin word for serpent or dragon. Okay, just thought you'd like to know. Okay, so we'll go back to this Greek influence article, and this, like I said, this is at Penn State. A man by the name of Draco, or the serpent, was tasked with creating and establishing a written code of law for Athens. In addition, he also determined what punishment for crimes would be. Although his punishments were viewed by many as harsh, for instance, death for stealing cabbage, his law granted equality before the law to all the citizens of Athens, regardless of social status. Are you starting to get the picture here, folks? The democratic system and adoption of this system is an important systematic process for not Western Europe, but Western civilization as a whole. Now you know who the dragon is, folks. The entire Western civilization. Without this Greek influence, there would be no system for the people in place, and the common man, woman would not have a say in important decisions that shape their surroundings. That it is important because without democracy, those things we have may view as commonplace and a birthright and would not exist. Without the adoption of democracy, we would not be able to elect leaders that we believe will fight for our interests and would not be able to influence decisions that we feel strongly about. Now, I'm going to ask a question, folks. Take a look around you and ask yourself this question. Has democracy worked? Hmm? Democracy has brought all kind. Well, actually, I think if I understand correctly, democracy brought Adolf Hitler. Was he not elected? Let's see. Hmm. Although Hitler lost the presidential election of 1932, he achieved his goals when he was appointed chancellor on the 30th of January 1933. On February 22nd, Hindenburg paved the way to dictatorship and war by issuing the Reichstag fire decree, which nullified civil liberties. Yes, even Germany, before the Nazis took power, was a democracy. What did democracy lead to? Well, it led to the rise of Adolf Hitler. And I don't want this to be lost on the listeners here. The draconian laws. Okay. Now, in the U.S. Constitution, it is written that no one is supposed to, how does it read? Cruel and unusual punishment is forbidden in the Constitution, and also excessive punishment is also forbidden in the U.S. Constitution. Yet, folks, what we have is we have politicians getting away with murder, literally, while the little people spend long years in jail with hardened criminals for small offenses, folks, for small offenses. Each and every president of the United States, starting with, I believe it was Harry S. Truman, makes a mockery out of the presidential pardon by pardoning a turkey rather than a human being. This is a glittering example of draconism. Make no mistake about it, folks. The laws and the punishment, even in the United States, are draconian, of the serpent, the devil. Western civilization is the serpent. I've proved it to you today using this particular Penn State website written by Antonio Santos. Cultural Leadership Blog. Now, once again, let's see, what was it? It was a, I know where it was. It was on South Front, wasn't it? Now, South Front is a Russian propaganda website. However, now, folks, please understand also my belief that Cuba is under a terrible dictatorship. So is Nicaragua. So is Venezuela. We all know this. Now, this Russia propaganda website is pointing out that Mike Pompeo says regime change is also planned for Nicaragua, Cuba, and not only Venezuela. I think they might have exaggerated his words just a little bit, but I'll read a little bit of it. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo admitted that U.S. policy includes moving against regimes that are not democratic. You see, folks, this is what I'm talking about right here. Now, I will read a little bit more of it. And now, as I'm saying, that the Russians embellished a little bit here, but their embellishment still is not far from truth. All right? Such as Cuba, Nicaragua, not simply Maduro's government in Venezuela, in an interview with Telemundo on February the 22nd. If you're moving against these regimes that are not democratic, many Nicaraguan people, Cuban people are saying, are you going to help us next? Christina Londano asked. Yes, President Trump's administration has done so and will continue to do so, not just in Venezuela, but certainly in Nicaragua and Cuba as well. You will see that. You see that in the policies. These policies are very different from the previous administration. They recognize that these governments are treating these people harshly, presenting real risks, security threats to the people, privacy risks, denying them basic liberties. And these are not the kind of thing that ought to happen in the Western Hemisphere. And the United States under President Trump is working diligently in not just Venezuela, but in each of these two countries to achieve good outcomes for those people. Okay, people need to lead the efforts. I'm convinced that they are determined to do it as well. The American people will support them. So what's going on here is regime change in, well, the Western Hemisphere that are not in the view of the United States democracy. Now, I will tell you that while all this is going on, well, actually, the book of Daniel will tell you, while all this is going on, that a kingdom, and not a democracy, but a kingdom is going to be set up in Jerusalem. And these Western democracies are used to telling other countries what to do, especially smaller ones. And if they don't do it, they will find a pretext for war, just like what happened yesterday in Venezuela. A pretext for war happened yesterday in Venezuela. Where Venezuelan troops fired upon civilians who were trying to help foreign aid to come into the country. Fired upon them and killed some and wounded a bunch of them. If you're looking for a pretext for war in any given situation, I guarantee you will find it. The coming of the Messiah in Jerusalem will be no different. They will find a pretext for war. You can believe that. What I'm telling you is this: Western civilization has nothing in the Messiah. I'll show you. Let's see, is it in John 14? Right here. John 14:27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not the kind of peace that this world gives. No. Not democracy type of peace, folks. Unto you, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. You have heard how I said unto you, I go away and will come again to you. If you love me, you would rejoice, because I said I go to the Father, for my Father is greater than I. Modern day Christianity does not believe that. I will continue. And now I have told you before it come to pass that when it come to pass, you will understand. Hereafter I will not talk much with you, because the prince of this world is coming, and he has nothing to do with me. So as he ascends, the prince of this world descends, you see. And he eventually brought the Roman way, the Western civilization. Satan, the serpent, draconian laws. And he has nothing in me, but the world may know that I love the Father, as the Father gave me the commandment, even so do I. Now in John 14:17, it says, the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive. Now think about that for a minute, folks. I have spent the last couple of years pointing out that what the world believes is diametrically opposed to the truth. But those of you who believe the truth, believe that the Messiah's name is Yehoshua, not Jesus or Jesus, those who believe that the Father's name is Jehovah, not God or the Lord, those of you who know that December the 25th is the birthday of the pagan sun god of the Romans and the Greeks, you know the truth. But the world does not believe the truth, and it can't. The world cannot receive it because it does not see it nor know it, but you know it because it abides with you and will be in you. So those of you who have the Spirit of truth, you know these things that I've talked about over the last couple of years. And you believe it. But the world is opposed to you, and the world is opposed to the truth. And for that reason, we have, how do I put this? Sexual confusion all over the place. Nobody knows their role, their place anymore. Everybody is demanding their rights. Or maybe I should say there is a spirit of self-entitlement to the point of insanity going on in this world right now. As a result, this is a direct result of Hellenization of Western civilization. It's a result of democracy, and it's even the result of draconian laws. I'm saying this again. When Messiah comes to set up his kingdom, or when Jehovah sets a kingdom up and makes Yehoshua, Messiah, the king of Jerusalem, and takes the land that he inherited from the Father, and he takes that land by force and rules as a king by fiat, the democracies, Western civilization, will come up against that king, and they will be defeated. Daniel 2 points that out, and Daniel 7 points it out. I don't think I have much need to point out what, oh, well, maybe I'll do this. It won't take me very long. Okay. Was it Zechariah? We'll go to Joel 3 first. Okay. Verse 1, for behold, in those days and in that time when I will bring the captives of Judah and Jerusalem back, I will also gather all the Goyim and will bring them down into the valley of judgment and will judge them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, which they have scattered among the nations. Among who? The children of Judah and Jerusalem have you sold to the Greeks, that you may remove them far from their borders, force them to be Hellenized, you see. Okay, that was part of the insult. That was part of the indignation that will be returned upon their own heads. Okay. Zechariah 9. Zechariah 9, this is when Tyre and Zidon, Hadrach and Damascus and all that will experience war. And as we see, it's happening right now in those days. In those days, Zion's king is going to come right here, and a war will commence between the sons of Zion and who? The sons of Greece, Western civilization. Okay? Now, let's go to what Paul said. Romans 1 verse 16. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Messiah. See, this is one of these things that the Romans and the Greeks forced upon the truth. They forced their names, their titles upon the truth, thereby making it null and void. You have to say, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Messiah, for it is the power of Jehovah unto salvation to everyone that believes, to the Jew first and to the Greek second. I know a lot of people don't like the way I said that, but the problem is this is worded incorrectly. To the Jew first and then to the Greek second. This word is to the Hellenes. Now let's go to Romans 2. Let's see here. First of all, got to go backwards. Well, Romans 2. Now, talking about draconianism, which is why we are not supposed to, if we are believers, we're not supposed to take part in Western civilization's justice system. In other words, when you're called for jury duty, you have to decline because we're not a part of this. Therefore, you are inexcusable, O man, whosoever you to judge, for wherein you judge another, you condemn yourself also. Because you that judge, you do the same things. We are sure that the judgment of Jehovah is according to truth against them which commit such things. Such things as what? Hypocrisy. Condemning others when we ourselves do the same thing. That brings judgment upon us, does it not? But we are sure that the judgment of Jehovah is according to the truth against them which commit such things. And think you, O man, you that judge them which do such things, and you do the same thing, and you shall not escape the judgment of Jehovah, or despise you the riches of his goodness and forgiveness, and long suffering, not knowing that the goodness of Jehovah leads you to repentance. But because of the hardness of your heart, you're after the hardness of an impenitent heart treasured up yourself wrath against the day of wrath and the revelation of the righteous judgment of Jehovah, who will render to every man according to his deeds. In other words, if a man was merciful, if a man was a sinner but merciful, he will be given mercy. But if a man was a sinner and unmerciful, he will receive no mercy. That's how the judgment is going to be laid out. To them, by patient continuance and well-doing, seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life. But unto them that are contentious, who reject the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation, and wrath, yes, kill with the sword, are angry all day long, pointing the finger of accusation against their fellow man when they themselves do the same thing. We see that going on right now. Tribulation and anguish unto every soul of man that does evil, of the Jew first, and of the Gentile second. But glory and honor and peace to every man that works good, to the Jew first, and the Gentile second. In this way, there is no respect of persons with Jehovah. For as many that have sinned without the Torah shall also perish without the Torah. And as many that have sinned in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. All right. But we just read how judgment is going to be made. Now, this word Greek, as I pointed out, go to Strong's Concordance real quick before I completely missed the reason why I went to this chapter to begin with. Remember, he was talking to the Romans. You see this? Gentile, Hellene. We read at Penn State's blog written by this fellow, well, I told you what his name was, that Western civilization is derived from Hellenism or Greek, or the Greek way. Now, the Jew did in fact suffer tribulation and anguish by the Hellenes, the Hellenistic Romans. The second will be Western civilization that is going to suffer great tribulation. People don't understand why Paul worded it this way. That is the reason. But remember this, folks, above all, glory, honor, and peace to every man that works good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile second. But guess what? To the Hellene as well. If they work good, glory, and if their work is peaceable and honorable, you see, folks. So, I want you to understand the lifestyle that we're living today is comes from the serpent. Hellenism. And the Greeks worshiped the serpent. So, and you can look in all the what is it? Places of medicine. It's not so much anymore these days as it used to be, but they have the serpent up there because the serpent was the symbol of Greek medicine. I'll show it to you here. Let's see. Symbol of Greek medicine. Serpent. And just so you know, folks, that this serpent that they see what they try to do. This is what Hellenism was famous for doing, incorporating traditions of peoples and superimposing their own traditions upon them. Classic example. They will try to tell you that the rod with the serpent on it is a symbol of the rod that Moses posted up in the wilderness. But that's not what it is. In fact, it is the rod of Asclepius. Okay? The rod of Asclepius has nothing to do with Moses in the wilderness. Also known as the staff of Asclepius, sometimes spelled Asclepios, is a serpent entwined rod wielded by the Greek god Asclepius, a deity associated with healing and medicine. So in every single one of these hospitals, or nearly now, many of them have taken them down, but you folks, those of you who are my age, remember seeing these everywhere. Every medical institution, the symbol has continued to be used in modern times where it is associated with medicine and healthcare, yet frequently confused with the staff of the god Hermes, the caduceus. Theories have proposed about the Greek origin of the symbol and its implications. So you see, folks, you've just learned something today. The deity associated with healing and medical arts in Greek mythology. This is paganism, folks. The most famous temple of Asclepius was in northeast Peloponnese, a famous healing temple. Was located on the island of Kos where Hippocrates, the legendary father of medicine, may have begun his career. In fact, all these medical doctors take the Hippocratic Oath. Other Asclepia were situated in Trachela, Cortese, and Pergamum in Asia Minor, you see. In honor of Asclepius, a certain type of non-venomous snake was often used in healing rituals, and these snakes, the Asclepian snakes, crawled around freely on the floor of dormitories where the sick and the injured slept. These snakes were introduced at the founding of each new temple of Asclepius throughout the classical world from about 300 BCE onwards. Healing temples, folks. You know, Western civilization did not have to go and post the rod of Asclepius at their front doors, but they chose to do so, making them the temple of false gods. This is why I say in the very beginning of this particular video log, or this video, that you have been Hellenized. It's a fact. So, when the kingdom is set up in Jerusalem, folks, and it is said, "Come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins," that is not, how do I say this? That is not some figure of speech, as the preacher today would like to tell you. No, it's actually literal. Come out of her, my people, means to literally leave, to exit, to immigrate, to move from one landmass to another. That's what come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins means. So I hope you have found this enlightening. And may the kingdom in Zion come soon.